This is the June 24th, on my birthday on June 24th, going into the expansion of 6B. Was less than a half a mile. It was the expansion where the pipeline broke, the replacement. And they were also joining it with this line 9 and getting ready to do water testing. Line 6B and line 9 joined together to make this massive pipeline that Enbridge is doing. It's actually larger than the Keystone XL. So the protest was that support team from my cats came, and I agreed because it was my 35th birthday on June 24th to wedge myself in the pipeline. Thinking it was a new pipeline, I only wore shorts and a sleeveless shirt because it was like 90 degrees out. And so we walk up to this pipe just planning to put the skateboard in there. I had 3 days of food, and we were just going to blockade with that. And so we open, the only thing that covered this pipeline was duct tape. And we unroll the duct tape, take it off, and all these chemical taste, smell just came out. And everybody took a step back, and we were like, okay, I wonder what's in here.
It ran out as a liquid form? Was it just like a little
vapor? It was a
vapor.
Oh,
a vapor.
Polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons.
Oh.
It was like it made a couple people like almost kind of sick, and
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so this comes out, and you still went in, but you still.
There's kids that are having seizures, and there's a lot of people that aren't here anymore, and so and kind of put a damper on it, but yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So when we did that, not realizing what the chemical is, it was in the heat of the moment. It took the police 40 minutes to get there, and literally, by the time the police got there, I was to a point where I was face down and I was breathing, and I was counting 3 seconds so that I didn't breathe too fast, and I would only breathe in the bag, and then breathe out and breathe in, and I counted every time. So by the time the cops got there, I was like, I didn't even give them a chance to give me a demand. I told them, I was like, look, I want to stay in here for 10 hours and I want to shut business down for a day. If you guys let me do that, I will come out of the pipeline. If you don't, I have 3 days worth of food, and there's 5 miles of pipeline, and it's all underground. Bringing this story back a little bit, after that, that's what caused the need to get the blood test.
Mm-hmm.
So we got this blood test, and finding the benzene and the toluene and these other things suggests that maybe those shouldn't be in the pipe.
So is that in the new product then? Is that what you're thinking? Or did some of the stuff leak into this area? Or had it had a chance to run anything through the pipe? No.
No. Well, and if they did water testing, they did it illegally. That's always possible with them. But the other theory is that maybe it's in our water, and those things. Because it's not like it's a very specific. When you look for these kind of chemicals, it's not something that they have the equipment at the ER to do. They can't screen your blood like that. You have to do something very specific. And if they don't know what chemicals they're looking for, it can be up to $250 per chemical for them to look for in your blood. Mm-hmm. It's not like the whole community is gonna. Has
anybody done that before?
It costs so much money.
So somebody put the money up, the $1,200.
Yeah. So Dr. Timmons and his wife Carolyn, they're very outspoken, lovely, lovely people here, and just out of concern, they paid out of their own pocket, paid the whole $1,200 for me to
nice. Get the salmon carcass down there. So you're saying?
Yeah, I'll bring this. I don't know how well the camera picks up, so I'll bring this to the light. Okay. And you can see down here that there's stuff that people stay down here.
So the homeless are living down here?
Yeah. For any information, I don't know if you can capture any of the chemical that we're watching just float down the river right now.
There's sort of like a sheen. You can see it.
You can see that they have it.
Oh, they've got some.
Yeah, you can see that they got it. for the dredging, they got it marked off.
Yeah.
Is one, Kalamazoo is considered the 6th meanest city in the nation to the homeless. In 2012, we found out we had a 92% rise in homeless children because of the economy in Michigan here. It's kind of like Kalamazoo is a little micro example of Detroit, where Detroit has these humongous, astounding numbers. By capita, we almost match, but we're attention downtown. Our biggest homeless shelter has 300 beds, and there are 1,600 homeless children alone. And then you couple that with the Kalamazoo oil spill. Traditionally, including myself in our childhood, we fished to get our food in a lot of instances. So there's reports and there's information coming out that the Kalamazoo River did have coercive used and did have disbursements used that made the oil sink. We're finding these things that are called tar sand balls, and credit to Craig Ritter, Dr. James Timmons, and Professor Barcelona from Western, who are really people that are making this information put together. Craig started finding these balls in the river, didn't know what they were, got them tested out. They've been come to known as tar balls. We've seen them in the BP spill as well. And what they are chemical accumulations at the bottom of the river of coercive and these dispersant chemicals that make the oil go down quicker so that they can hide it. And they'll say that they use it to coagulate it, that they're trying to stop the river from going as it sinks. But if they did that in the reports in 2010, it would have said, we're putting this stuff in the river to stop it from going downstream. It's a good thing. It's not a good thing. That's not why they did it. As a matter of fact, they said that the oil floated down the river. And what links that to the homeless problem here in Kalamazoo is that in quarks it is something called a polyaromatic hydrocarbon. It's a very scientific term to say something that breaks down the oil. Well, unfortunately, this also breaks down your immune system in the same way it breaks down the oil. And because it's an inorganic compound, it actually intensifies as it goes up the food chain. So we've gotten information that suggests we had these big floods right after the oil spill, and that carried all of this chemical dispersant into several of our farming, our crops, onto land, and it's been in our soil, thus being in our food chain since 2010. Citing BP and citing the Exxon Valdez spill in Alaska, this information suggests that we're going to start seeing much more extinction of our species, much more of our natural habitat dying. It starts at the 3rd year. That's really when it seems to mature as a disease.
And how long's it been?
It's been 3.5 years.
3.5 years. And has Enbridge paid anything for the damage that they've done, or what?
The only information I can find that Enbridge has paid so far is $3.8 million, and Enbridge makes between $40 and $50 million a day, to put that in context.
A day.
And in 3.5 years so far, they've for sure been fined $3.8 million.
And that was the fine. And then what's their responsibility toward cleanup?
Enbridge gets paid. They get paid all of the Superfund money to do the cleanup. They're responsible for it. So that way they keep their corporate stuff protected, I suppose, is how they say it.
Have there been any sampling done on the water?
There has been sampling done by independent sources, and those vary very differently from our government sources. Our Michigan Department of Community Health released a report with a finding saying that there are no long-term effects from this oil spill and that it's safe for recreational use. However, these tar sands and these tar balls are in the bottom all over the river past. They said also that this only fell within 40 miles. Well, this is about 60 miles past. This is beyond that 40-mile marker. And we found tar balls there, and we see chemical. It's floating past us casually all day long, right there.
Yeah.
And also, if you just Google tar sand, you see how many toxic chemicals like benzene, like toluene, like N-hexane, and all of these natural things that are already in the oil. Not to count these dispersants that they put in the oil now. The higher up the food chain it goes, the more lethal it is to your system, the more impact it is. So
animals first and then humans
are
getting the brunt of it. All right.
The further up the food chain, the more consolidated, the more concentrated it is, and the more dangerous it is. And we just took shots.
And we just took shots of the
of our
carcass.
homeless.
Thanks for bringing us down here, Chris, showing us what's going on. I think the world needs to be paying more attention to these things because it does affect us all eventually, not just Kalamazoo, but they get away with it here, and then it happens somewhere else, and then it's somewhere else. So glad that you're paying attention and staying on them to hold them accountable. And tomorrow is your court hearing.
Yeah, and me and 4 other people are willing to face prison time. And June 24th, I took a skateboard and I went in big expansion 6B for what they're fixing for this 1.1 million gallon oil spill. They use that opportunity to legally double the size and the capacity of a line and joining it with other lines that in most cases, like this one, were made for gas and weren't made for oil in the first place. They don't maintenance them. The example, line 9, that runs right through Lake Michigan and is right in the middle of the drinking water for 25 million people. There's blatant video that most of the meters, there's debris all over it. They can't even tell how structurally sound the pipe is in most spots, but they're going to push it through anyway. Michigan, and with 6B, it's moving from 250,000 gallons a day to 500,000. There's parts in Canada where they're taking lines with the same integrity and the same structure, and they're pushing it up to 800,000 gallons a day. They're tripling it in some spots.
And somebody mentioned that they don't necessarily maintain them because if the pipe breaks, then it gets covered by insurance. And so they don't have to pay, the insurance company pays.
Yeah, and if there's a spill, Enbridge gets the money to control, maintain, operate, and do the whole cleanup costs. And quite honestly, we're all really willing to go to prison and do all this stuff because this river is done.
Yeah.
The best thing, even the scientists that are completely outspoken against it, the best thing that we can do is dredge it, which completely destroys the floor bed and is why the chemicals are so prevalent right now.
Have they started dredging it?
They've started dredging. They didn't ask permission at first. They called the cleanup product so that they wouldn't have to do it as waste management. And then, even though they did that, and even though they started dredging in the first place without any permits, they were given permits at 5 locations, and then they started dredging in 12 locations. This is just this summer. It took 3 years for the EPA to even acknowledge that there's still 180,000 gallons of tar sand in the bottom of the riverbed. So when they did finally, and only because citizen journalism, finally say that they had to do it, they set up the dredge pads, and they were given a year deadline, and so they didn't even wait. They bought land, said they were putting up a bank, and then went off of that right behind Bell's Brewery, which puts out water through they use that water to put out beer to the whole country, and then just started dredging. They take an auger that's probably about 6 foot tall, and what it does, it's a mining operation. It pounds into the core, it pounds into the bed of the river, and dredges it up and dredges it up and dredges it up and dredges it up. So 6 foot deep, you're destroying the entire riverbed and everything. We have chemical balls that can be from this big to 4 foot. One of them that they found by Marshall is almost 12 foot in diameter. When they break that up, all of those chemicals that were lying dormant now float down the river, just like what we're seeing right now. If we're gonna do anything with this river, if we're gonna do anything with this, I want everybody to see, everybody that's fighting XL, everybody that's fighting Enbridge, this is what's going to happen if you don't fight.
Here's your proof.
Yep.
What's really scary is that all of the chemical that we were just talking about by the dump trucks is the color of brown sand.
Yeah. Wow. Sadly.
You can just, it's all day. Like you can see the sheen.
Yeah, you definitely can see it.
So I was having that. I was having severe nausea, and so they got this toxicity report to see what I had just got myself exposed to. And the blood work came back, and there were some things that we kind of expected, like the NH-hexane, and there were a bunch of herbicides, and a couple of little things like that you kind of expect, like corrosive materials that were in the pipe. There were other things I had elevated levels of benzene, and I had elevated levels of toluene and ethylcycline, and these things that are traditionally in the tar sand, but they're not in the corrosive pre-maintenance of the pipelines. So how did they get there? And they're minute. They're not going to kill me, but I have to get checked for pancreatic cancer every year and all this stuff.
People in, like me, and people that don't know what's going on, because this is the big problem. Like you said, I think we should go through the neighborhood and just ask people. I'd be interested in how much people know about what's in their backyard. Because one of the problems we have today is the media are not getting the information out.
Yeah.
And,
Media here do exactly the opposite.
Yeah, cover up. Okay, so we're going to be watching this closely. We are now on the tour of the pipe shine with Occupy the Roads. We're going to shine some light on all these pipes that are going in and the true stories so we can get people interested in what's going on. Thank you, Chris.
Come and listen to my story about a man named Jed. A poor mountaineer barely kept his family fed. And then one day he was shooting at some food, and up through the ground come a bubbling crude oil, that is, black gold, Texas tea. Well, the first thing you know, old Jed's a millionaire. The kinfolk said, Jed, move away from there. Said, California is the place you ought to be. So they loaded up the truck and they moved to Beverly Hills, that is, swimming pools, movie stars.
The Beverly Hillbillies.